The following Degrassi video contains mature subject matter based on racism. Opinions and discussions are mine and mine alone in this video. No one has influenced me to think of a certain way. Most Degrassi people will probably disagree with my statements, which is fair and abrupt in a sense. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Degrassi video, as I will be talking about the one storyline that has been made into prominence in 2020, of course, because of the events of 2020 and not Corona based. We are, of course, talking about the famous racism plot of Frankie in season 2 of Next Class, or season 16, to continue the storyline. Now, the Frankie racism story, as best as I can tell you, it's like this. Degrassi was in a war with Northern Tech, both on the volleyball court and with prank wars. Northern Tech basically pulled a fire alarm, forcing the Degrassi team to go outside in their cities, if you will, and embarrassing them. Degrassi decides to try to pin them back by painting a poster that shows the Northern Tech players as terrible people. And Frankie comes up with the idea to draw zoo animals. So they draw the zoo animals, blah, blah, blah. Which was great. But unfortunately for them, the Northern Tech team has a problem with it because of some gorillas and apes and all that. And in black culture, that is incorrect. So Northern Tech refuses to play against Degrassi. And we don't know what happens. I don't know if it's a forfeiture win or it just got postponed. But in the end, of course, Frankie says that the poster was made because of Northern Tech being called the Sioux. That was their nickname and all that. Unfortunately, though, the animals of the co-captains were terrible. They're gorillas, and of course, in black culture, that sucked. Shay actually, as team captain, didn't take too much offense to it. However, the opposing team's captain came to Shay and basically told her about how racist it was. I mean, I know Shay didn't seem to be in touch with her black heritage and all that, but probably Shay came from a family that basically didn't talk about it, or basically were well off, and that people liked them, even if they were black. So basically what ends up happening is that Shay takes a look at things. Her dad tells her about these things, and basically Shay makes the statement to basically blackball Frankie. They kick her off the volleyball team. The administration had no idea about that. And Frankie was hurt. Frankie tried to apologize, but basically Frankie didn't admit to a lot of things. She just basically apologized if it offended anyone, but she didn't get the message. Frankie, of course, was basically being chastised by a lot of people. Unfortunately, the storyline didn't end there, as basically there was another thing. Tiny was protecting Lola from abuse from another guy. Unfortunately, Simpson basically took it as offensive and basically suspended Tiny for a week, saying that, you can't fight for people. Now, Tiny's suspension was terrible. I mean, he was trying to defend somebody, and basically all this came and all that. So during Throwback Thursday, the alumni episode, basically the students are upset with Principal Simpson for what he did. And basically, why would they suspend Tiny for a week for his actions towards saving probably Lola? And basically, there's no punishment for Frankie. Simpson basically says that Frankie was kicked off the volleyball team by the peers, and that nothing else has happened. So basically, they used Throwback Thursday and the alumni event to throw caution to the wind and basically try to point out that Frankie is terrible, the school administration's terrible, and, Black Lives Matter. Emma joins the protest. Shay gets stopped by a cop. Cop gets mad at Shay and all that. So basically, that happens. And then at the same time is the alumni event. And they projected image onto Frankie, who actually was going to sing the Degrassi school anthem, only because Maya wrecked her voice. And basically, they projected white privilege. Basically, by talking to a lot of people, even alumni such as Paige and Marco, they figure that Frankie basically is only getting scot-free because of her privilege and the fact that her dad is the mayor of Toronto. So basically, yeah. It doesn't also help matters that Tristan had basically been handpicking events that or cannot be put on the show. And that was a little suspect at best. So basically, the students interrupt the alumni thing, basically wanting Simpson to at least have a conversation about it. So basically, Tristan is upset, but Mo calls Tristan out, basically saying that you are so whiny and picky. Tristan realizes he's made a gigantic mistake and basically talks to the students as president of student council. Sadly, though, that wasn't the end of it. So basically, all the fuss and all the anger, and basically Simpson relents and decides to have a conversation to do with this thing. Frankie, of course, is upset about her moment being ruined and basically decides to run away. She tries to run away. Jonah protects her and all that. Frankie doesn't help matters by basically being afraid of a guy coming in and basically locking her doors, trying to prevent him from coming in. Sadly, though, he was black, so basically that came off as racist, even though Frankie didn't want it personal. Frankie then finally understands these conversations, so she basically apologizes to her teammates, apologizes to school, and basically says that, I'm a terrible person. I need to learn, I need to grow. And by the time the final came around, Degrassi had to face Northern Tech. So the Degrassi team decides to let her back on the team. I think mostly because they need her to beat Northern Tech. And they did kick her off. It wasn't any administration's doing. So basically, they do that. Frankie leads the team to a victory, which then had the air let out of the balloon when it was revealed that there was a bus crash with Degrassi boosters such as Tristan, Maya, and a few other people. Tristan goes into coma, Maya feels guilty about herself, and basically just couldn't shake everything. And it brought back memories of Cam, and that's not good. So basically, that's how the plot is. So now, I'm going to read to you a Degrassi Reddit post by somebody, Neil Lander, 23 days ago. So this is being taped on August 15th. So basically, it says, why I hate the Frankie racism arc and how to fix it. Basically, person says, my least favorite storyline is the Frankie racism arc. The storyline is so problematic that I decided to make a separate post about it. I understand they were trying to portray implicit racial bias and show how a good person can have prejudices, but they couldn't handle it well. First of all, I can't take the Northern Tech girls seriously because they're being the victims, because their prank against the Degrassi girls was so much worse. They should have been disqualified and legally prosecuted for what they did. They trespassed into Degrassi, stole the girls' clothing while they're showering, and pulled the firearm so the girls had to run outside without their clothes. Frankie's towel actually gets stuck in the door and she flashes dozens of students. Basically, the person hated that the Northern Tech girls took the high ground. Do you have any idea of what it felt like seeing that hang from my own school? But how did Frankie feel about dozens of students seeing her naked without consent? And as for the drawing, what Frankie did was obviously never intended to be racially charged. But the problem is a single person on the Degrassi team didn't think it was racist until Northern Tech accused them of racism, and then basically they throw Frankie under the bus. The Northern Tech captain acknowledges that it was never intended to be racist, but doesn't care. And the way that Frankie was ostracized by virtually everyone, which was an ass, it's just hard to watch. Lola actually made a racist comment at the beginning of the season saying that they all look like criminals, and then basically says no offense to Shay, because she's black. Everyone forgot about it in 10 seconds. Frankie gets kicked off the team and driven out of the school for what the entire team did. Think about it. What if Frankie drew a zebra or a lion instead of a gorilla? Then, instead of the gorilla, then that member of the team would be the terrible racist. And they said, then how come Northern Tech refused to play Degrassi? Isn't that a forfeiture and all that? It's hard to watch Frankie try so hard to set things right, only to have her words twisted and have people become more angry at her for being defensive. Of course she's being defensive. She's being slandered as a racist while people are just trying to ruin her life. The worst part is her friends abandoned her and kicked her off the team because she used the phrase, those people. Sounds like a racist people would say. Yeah, that's fair. I think the writers understood how fair it was to Frankie. So they needed to show us that she was racially prejudiced, but it was too little too late. Frankie's put in a situation where a stranger comes up to her car to help her, but she locks the car doors. The stranger helps her, and Frankie actually works that her reaction was motivated by unconscious racial bias, which opened her eyes. So basically, she makes an unconditional apology and acknowledges the drug, and the team takes her back. But of course, the team doesn't. The team only took her back because they needed her to win. They do accept her apology, and Northern Tech accepts too. And the captain said that she was tired of being the bigger person. So how could it be fixed and all that? Here's how the person would fix it. In the beginning, it's Frankie who makes the racist comment instead of Lola. And instead of responding to a much worse prank, the poster is unprovoked. While drawing the poster, some people have concerns about racial implications, but Frankie insists. Shows us that this just was an accident. Bias did take a thing. This person actually wants Frankie to be more racist. What? Yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah. There's a lot of vibes and all that about this. So basically, as I read the post bit by bit, I basically am thinking about this thing. Yeah, about the prank. And how the heck did Northern Tech get away with it? I mean, Northern Tech should have been called out because of the prank, and Northern Tech's administrator should have done something about it. Maybe if the principal of Northern Tech did something about it, then maybe the Degrassi kids would have been like, great. And then basically they wouldn't have to feel so angry at Northern Tech. It could have been anger towards the fact that Northern Tech didn't do anything to hurt their team because of what happened with the fire alarm. All that. Yeah, I mean, and I agree that basically nobody stopped Frankie from drawing the gorilla on the poster. And Shay didn't want to take part. I wish Shay had taken part in it, kind of, and then tell Frankie, that's the wrong animal. You're going to draw a racist profile, a racist picture. And basically talk to Frankie and say, you shouldn't do that. Because Shay could have taken the high ground based on that. Oh, by the way, I think Shay is told she could be on the national development team if she apologizes for her protest. But I think she basically tells him to stick it where the sun don't shine, and she doesn't get the thing, but she takes the higher ground. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, yeah, they throw Frankie under the bus and all that. And all that. To me, I mean, this is a good storyline that talks about racism and all that. I mean, they have the right idea because, racism wasn't completely talked about in most Degrassi seasons, except for season 2 when Hazel pretended to be Jamaican instead of being from Somalia because she was worried about people calling her a terrorist because of the Muslim problems and because 9/11 ruined things for Muslims. It's true, unfortunately. I think Muslims had a good chance to be in a decent society, but then 9/11 comes about, everyone just basically pointed fingers at the Muslims and just said, you don't matter. Muslims do matter because, there are a lot of good Muslims and the good outweighs the bad, in a sense. But what I'm getting at is that basically Hazel was trying to protect her identity and all that, which was wrong in a sense. And she finally comes out with the truth. But thankfully, though, the students don't show her any anger. I think it was mostly because the Iraqi girl got her International Day presentation destroyed so badly that basically they all knew they had to take a step back and basically not be so prejudiced and all that. Sadly, though, that was the only main storyline Hazel got. I mean, Hazel dated Jimmy and had problems with Jimmy basically maybe having googly eyes towards Ellie and all that, but that wasn't a major storyline. That was in the background. And then you got yourself, did they talk about blacks being, I forget the word, carded or something like that. I know there was a Dallas and Connor thing, but basically they didn't lead on that, though, too. The Degrassi writers did a good job in talking about racism stuff in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement, which was, who was that for? Wasn't there was someone in St. Louis? I would say Trayvon Martin, but I might be wrong. But anyway, no, that was Zimmerman. That was someone else. But anyway, yeah, all that. It raises a lot of questions. It's like, yes, it's racist and all that in a lot of people's eyes and all that. People will deconstruct in saying that, it wasn't meant to be racist, but it was racist. But the fact of the matter is that, no one stopped Frankie from drawing those gorillas. if someone had the sense, even Shay, then Frankie would have been like, oops, I guess I should not have done that. And maybe this thing would have been blown over. But no. They were angry about the fire drill thing. And I think Degrassi was saying, we need to get them back without getting ourselves in trouble. Sadly, though, they got in trouble. And yeah, they threw Frankie under the bus. I think that they basically needed a scapegoat because Degrassi got in trouble for the racist poster and whatnot. I knew that Frankie was the one who drew it, and basically they were trying to protect their own self-worth, so they basically threw Frankie under the bus. You know, Shay, I think, was protecting Frankie until the Northern Tech captain told her about these things, and basically Shay threw Frankie under the bus. But Frankie didn't help herself out by apologizing so weakly. I mean, yeah, she makes some statements and all that. But I mean, when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's like this storyline. I don't think it was all about race. It's about privilege too. That's the second thing that it is. It isn't race that's has it. It's also about privilege. As we all know, Frankie has two siblings, her twin Hunter and her older brother Miles, and their father is Miles Hollingsworth the second. Miles Hollingsworth the third is the teenager. But anyway, he won the mayorship of Toronto. I don't know how he would have won, because I think his biased tactics, his problems with his kids, and the fact that he's dumping money into his kid's school, would have probably got him into deep trouble in most years. Maybe people in Toronto basically thought that Degrassi Nudes actually brought Frankie up to be the victim, and basically that's how Hollingsworth won. Hollingsworth made some weird statements, I think, and basically putting money into Degrassi. I mean, to expand Degrassi is one thing, but isn't that nepotism? Isn't that kind of conflict of interest? Because, you know, his 3 kids go to that school. Basically, he's going to help Degrassi out, but will he help other schools like Northern Tech or Central or whatever? I don't know. I think some people were more mad at the fact that Frankie can get away with it without being punished so severely, and that this administration didn't punish her, and mostly because she's a Hollingsworth. Is it possible that the school board may have wanted to avoid Hollingsworth's wrath? Because after all, he's the mayor of Toronto, and he can basically command funds and all that. So what you got here is maybe the school or the school board was too far up their own butts to realize things. And maybe they were scared that they were going to get Hollingsworth so overblown, that basically he strips the school board of money. He basically tells them that, you know, you make a judgment about my kids, I'm going to take your funding away from you. Maybe every school. Maybe Degrassi basically was worried about punishing Frankie because they were worried that the Mayor Hollingsworth was going to react and basically strip Degrassi of their stuff and all that. Although I think that's abuse of power in a sense. But maybe Simpson was worried about punishing Frankie. And this whole stupid thing with Tiny and suspension, all that, is like stupid. Although Tiny actually says he'll take the punishment and all that, people are mad at him. I think he's basically saying that he's a pushover. And they don't want it that way. I agree. Like, Tiny doesn't want issues. Because he said that I got suspended, blah, blah, blah. But does he realize that he got suspended stupidly? Because of something stupid? There's a good chance, I feel, with Frankie. You know, I'm thinking with Lola. He was protecting Lola and he gets punished for that? That's stupid. Simpson made a stupid move. But then again, maybe it's not Simpson. Maybe it's the school board. In an unpopular opinions video that I have talked about, basically, I mean, was Simpson strict on his own accord, or was it the school board who were pulling his strings and all that? Even in like season 13, and like next class season 2, maybe the school board had some outdated policies, and Simpson was just going along with it. That could be true. I mean, when you think about it, it's like, did the school board screw up with these punishments and all that? And basically, they blamed Simpson. I wouldn't have it anyway. I think Simpson got blamed fairly. I mean, they thought that Simpson was stupid. And if the school board was behind these punishments, then why wasn't Simpson basically protecting the school? Basically, he was a coward in everyone's eyes. And it didn't help matters that Page and Marco basically said that basically punishments against minorities were worse than whites. That I'm surprised Paige would say that, but you know, Paige is not racist. Paige is just a queen bee who basically got shot down being an assistant to a movie star. Got lucky during the auditions and basically acted like a Hollywood star, even though she really doesn't deserve anything. So then you got Throwback Thursday, and you got to realize that all these people are coming back. Liberty's coming back. Holly J's come back. Manny Poss was mentioned but never came back physically. Emma came back. Mo came back. A few other people came back. Paige and Marco, of course. It's going to be like, you know, wow, this is amazing. You got all these legendary people coming. And then, of course, you got this whole racism thing. And basically Tristan trying to prevent issues from happening. Now, was Tristan basically thinking that he needed to quash the controversies, or were there outside sources? On one hand, with Tristan, it's basically that Tristan didn't want a controversy because he wanted to run the school in such a way. And when he saw Holly J, who was student council president once, and basically ran the school terribly because of the Shep's influence, basically he was trying to please her and all that. But on the other hand, you got to realize maybe Simpson may have said something. Simpson, I think, was getting the voices telling him to fuck off and all that. Maybe Simpson was trying to avoid these issues, and basically Simpson was trying to do everything he can to prevent an issue from happening. You got to believe me when I say that, you know, Simpson may have influenced Tristan and all that, and maybe Simpson got caught or something like that. I mean, Tristan's policies were stupid and all that. I blame Simpson more than Tristan. I mean, Tristan's a bad person, but I think Simpson was just trying to get rid of the distractions and all that because of the alumni event that he worked so hard on, and then this Black Lives Matter thing happens. I mean, Simpson did wrong, but at least he tried to make things right by saying, okay, we'll have a discussion, and then they'll talk about it in the next episode, blah, blah, blah. Simpson at least did something about it. But as I said, Simpson may have been cowardly with the fact that, you know, Frankie's dad is the mayor, and maybe he'll strip Degrassi of some money, although that would be illegal, and you can legally fight for that trick. Anyhow, so yeah, and Frankie had an experience when she tried to run away from home, and she realized how racist she was. I mean, I mean, she did apologize well, and maybe the Degrassi, and maybe some of the volleyball team actually wanted her back because she apologized, and some of them maybe wanted her back because they needed to beat Northern Tech, and she was the X Factor. But, I mean, all in all, it all worked out. I mean, Frankie ended up helping the team win. And then, of course, their world crashed down because of a bus crash. So, like, you know, there's the happy ending. Not this time. Not so fast. I mean, personally, I think that it was a good storyline and all that. Considering that they actually tackled racism and all that was one of the most major things I've thought of. I'm like, at least they did it. You can't blame them. But, I mean, I know that their tactics were stupid. I mean, I like the fact that Simpson admitted these things. And basically, the world thought that these stupid Black Lives Matter things were terrible, including that police officer who was standing off of Shay. Basically, you know, they were tackling all that. Of course, nowadays, the police are basically being told that they need to defund and to divert funds to maybe housing and education stuff. I agree with that, but you can't do it too much because if you need to call the police and they're not there because the funds are not there, basically you're on your own, and basically crooks will take advantage of the system and you'll be living to regret it. So that's the skinny of the most racist plot line in Degrassi history, and did they handle it? I know I did a video earlier in the playlist about was Degrassi racist, and I said, and I would go, not completely, but they could have done better. So basically this was the storyline that tipped everything in one direction. I hope you enjoyed this video. And of course, if you don't like my opinion, that's fine and dandy. But you know what? Things happen for a reason. So anyway, thanks for watching this video and have yourself a good day.